So we're going to talk about the community broadband visions. And, it's interesting. A lot of times I'm a guy who likes to jump right into action. Let's get something going. Let's do some things, enough talk. But I think one of the things that we've seen through this program is the real value of taking the time for discussions to create a community vision. And so I encourage you to put some serious conversation in here and think about, as we go through this 16-week program, to continue to look at that vision, modify that, and keep molding that to really fit your community thinking. That's a great tool to communicate to your own team, to keep yourself in bounds about what you think is success, and to let other community members know about what it is that your group is working on. Next. So what are the benefits of this vision? To inform people about the technology choices that you're ready to make, whether that's a fixed wireless network or a hybrid wireless fiber network or 100% fiber. Those are choices that you can really consider and again, help make your choices down the road. Deciding which providers are your best fit for partnerships. We talk in partnerships about wanting to be a good partner, and part of being a good partner is knowing what it is that you want to achieve through that partnership. If you're kind of wishy-washy, we all know that's more difficult to deal with. So if you really know what it is you're seeking, it's easier to find those partners. To inspire, when you have a kind of a big goal, a big vision that can really bring people on board and get them committed to the effort, to sustain your action and progress over time, and then to stay accountable. Next. So here's kind of what I write up is what people think about as a vision statement around broadband. It's got kind of a world-class standard. It's got a speed capability. It's competitive, maybe affordable, reliable, wired and wireless, with community-centric providers. And that certainly is throwing all the word salad right into the bucket and mixing that up for a vision. But know that each one of those words has meaning, and sometimes those things can be contradictory. And so as you think about these, as you create your own vision, what's really most important to you? And so the discussions around creating the vision are really important. We've seen some teams say, somebody will stick their hand up and say, well, I'll write that. And they're like, oh, that looks great. But I think if you do it as a team, it's definitely harder, but I think the value is much higher. Next. So as I mentioned, each word has a meaning and trade-offs. Next. Again, here's my main advice on this is take the time to have that discussion and not be afraid to revisit that discussion as you learn more and go through the process. And really, if you have that vision really firmed up, that's really part of the planning process. And so as we get to the end of the program, having that vision kind of in place and well tested through your discussions, it really should be your goal, not to have that final version in the next by the end of today or in the next week or so, but know that that vision should be moldable to what you've really learned based on an educated process. Next. We're going to come back to this at the end of the session. Great. So today we're lucky to have some guests, communities that have gone through this program over the last couple of years, and we've seen a variety of progress and activity from these communities. But these folks are great spokespeople for community broadband planning, the power of that happening. And so we hadn't really talked about who's going to go first, but I see Skylar's right there on camera. So maybe we'll start with Skylar Isley from Schuyler County, Illinois. She's been a great community leader on this initiative through the Economic Development Office. We're also in a few minutes here from Sam Harnack from Hancock County, her neighbor, Tracy Strassner from Bedford County, and Gary Camarano from Whiteside County. And he's he's been at this longer than any of our other team members on this call. So we'll have him do a bat cleanup here as we move into baseball season. So Skylar, why don't you go ahead and tell us about your broadband vision and kind of how that's hooked up against reality.
Okay, can you hear me okay, Bill?
We can.
Good morning, good to see everyone, and I'm really happy to be here from Schuyler County. We went through this process with Bill and his team and everyone here about a year and a half ago, I guess. So, and I know that all of this can be very kind of daunting. It's a little bit of a, you know, but you're in the weeds now. You're really deep into it now, so you know what to expect. I think in terms of helping to bring about your community vision, and I said this in our final plan, and I think this is the most important thing that I could share with you truly is when we entered into this process, the thing that we said that was most important to us is we didn't want to leave anything to chance. So, you know, I think we're a very small county. So we're in West Central Illinois, at about 60 miles from Quincy. We're about 60 miles from Springfield. Our county has about 6,000 people in it. The county seat has 2,500. Rushville is our county seat. And so, you know, we're like many of you in rural areas, you find yourselves kind of blending into the woodwork and not really getting a lot of attention. And we decided in Schuyler County that we didn't want to leave anything to chance. So we really, this process, you know, that Bill talked about of really working with the ISPs and getting kind of a plan together. You don't want to choose winners, you know, definitely you still want to have a spirit of you know, some good business. You want all of your ISPs to still compete because that's going to get the best dollar for your citizen. But you want to be sure that they're all playing nice in the sandbox together as much as you can, to help really build that plan across the county and get it done for your county. So as we're building a group, and we decided in Schuyler County, and I'm looking here to pull up our broadband plan. And Bill, I don't have it here on my screen, so I'm just going to talk. We decided when we actually developed our broadband vision that it was going to include the words fiber optic internet. So we're really shooting for, in our county, looking at fiber optic to every door. And so that was something we really had to really coach our citizens about, because many of them have fixed wireless and they're happy with that. And so it was good for us to bring the community together and work with them in a more comprehensive, giving them a more comprehensive role, informing them, helping them to know what broadband was about and what was going to be best for them in the county. I would say also down the line, you're going to find that as you work with the people in your county and as you build relationships with them, they're going to be your best advocates. And you already know this. I'm sure you've worked in other ways and other, you know, with other types of initiatives, but they're going to be your best advocates. And they're going to be the ones that are going to come alongside you, just as many did for us. Currently, we just went through the BEAD challenge process. So I don't know how many of you are familiar with that, but broadband equity, access, and deployment. We actually went through the challenge process to some of the locations on the state of Illinois map were not correct. So we challenged some of those locations, and our citizens were our best advocates. And it was amazing because some of the smallest places in our county that you would have never thought that these people would even, give a flip about what's going on. They're the ones that really came alongside us and helped us fill out letters and called the companies to see about service. And so those people are going to be your best advocates. So really, really engage your community and let them be a part of that broadband vision, because it will benefit you months and years down the road, more than just what you're doing right now. And also, one of the things Bill talked about that I wanted to really say is just inspiring them. We don't know what we don't know, right? So when you can inspire your community members, especially those that don't have broadband, and maybe a lot of our residents are elderly, and many of ours are below the poverty line, and they don't know what they don't know. They don't know that there's this bigger world out there that can engage them with telehealth and with educational opportunities. And so when we can inspire them that there is something better out there, they become the best advocates, and they really have really jumped in and been a part of us with this process. So hopefully that helps, Bill. And I'm happy to answer any questions as time allows later. Oh, I think you're muted, Bill, maybe. Oh.
Schuyler's got a great team there in place in Schuyler County, and I think they've seen a lot of activity there. It's interesting as you think about your county in particular. Schuyler County is famous for deer hunting, and we have in the lingo we have these things called community anchor institutions, and usually that's schools and hospitals and libraries and so on. And as I toured around the countryside with Schuyler on our community visits, I said, well, you drive down these little gravel roads, and here's a hunting lodge, about a 4,000 square foot building, with
beautiful, yeah.
And you think, well, these places, these hunting lodges where private parties come and hunt for a week and try and get their big trophy deer, not the folks that are doing it on the cheap. That's really a community anchor institution in Schuyler County. So think about how your vision really matches your community. I think going forward, I think that's important. Yeah. So I think Schuyler is struggling to convince probably funders that deer hunting lodges are community
anchor institutions. Yes. And I would, and just to kind of add on to that too as well, Bill, I think when you bring in and inspire your community about this vision for broadband, it helps you to understand the fabric of your communities as well, so that you can identify and isolate those areas where there maybe are more community activities that you're not aware of, that you want to, because that can be important with funders. If that's a pocket of activity in that community, or community center, or a senior center, or some kind of a special township building out in the country that holds events and also does, it's a polling place, and it's also some place that helps with other community type. It brings the community together. When you're out there and you're bringing together everyone in your county, you're going to learn more about those pockets, and those can really benefit you in the future in terms of funding. So it's good to get to know the folks who are out there. So yeah,
good.
Sorry,
Thanks.
Bill.
Thanks. Let's go to Sam Harnick, who's Schuyler's neighbor.
Hi, Sam.
In the adjacent county there in Hancock County. Welcome, Sam.
Hey, thank you so much. I'll give you a couple of disclaimers. I mentioned once before that I'm at my home office, and we've got some work being done on our house, so you might hear my dogs in the background. Sorry about that. It's just a necessary evil here. So like Skylar, about a year and a half ago, we started the process that you guys are apparently currently in. And it was sort of a thing that came to me almost by accident. I had seen it and I thought, oh, well, that doesn't apply to us. And then someone called and said, no, it totally applies to you. So here in Hancock County, we have got about 17,000, I think 600 people according to the 2020 census. Carthage is its county seat here in the middle. And we are an agricultural community. That's our largest GDP. One of the biggest things that we are dealing with broadband, and one of the biggest ways I was able to kind of really talk to people about this overall was truly that, currently we have fiber coming to the majority of our towns. Our largest town being Hamilton, Illinois. We're over here next to the Mississippi. And Hamilton has about 3,200 people. So when we talk about largest, that is really relative. Our larger communities have fiber coming to them. So a lot of people were like, well, if we already have internet, what's the issue? Well, the issue is that it's not just about the communities, the larger communities. It's not just about, as many of you know, the cities that are in your communities, your counties. We are dealing with this large agricultural community. We have a large population that's outside of our communities. I have amazing fiber. People less than a mile from me have almost none. They're fixed wireless. They're dealing with, if there's a storm, sometimes it's a problem. They don't have the best signals. Bill came out to our community visit and we toured a farm that's less than 2 miles away from Carthage, which is where I live, and again have some really great internet service. However, they were dealing with a fixed wireless situation that couldn't make it through all of the buildings they had there on their property, and sometimes the corn cribs and the metal that they're dealing with created a problem with their signals, and so they were trying to, they're doing the best that they can with what they've got, working with the fixed wireless community, realizing that was good for certain things, not great for others. They didn't get the wireless service that they needed to run all of their equipment in the fields. So there's a lot of situations that even before this program I didn't even realize, and I'm sure that as many of you are aware, you'll quickly become the expert in the field in your area. Just people will come to you and ask you about internet services that prior to this had no idea were even an issue. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I'm going to show you basically what we got out of this. I started with next to no knowledge other than we do have quite a few internet service providers here in Hancock County. Many of them weren't interested in going farther. We've got Quincy to the south of us. They had, Adams Fiber, the county internet service there, basically said, look, you guys are great, but we've come as far into Hancock County as we are going to go. We're focusing our efforts elsewhere. So, we kind of had to figure out what was available, who was doing what, who was willing to go farther, and really try to get there. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. This is this is my website, for Hancock County Economic Development, growhancock.com. As you can see, we added a broadband tab to the menu, and it just really kind of explains the broadband breakthrough program. And then if you click here on the Grow Hancock Broadband, you can see what we did with our results. This was one of our team members was amazing and put this together. I cannot remember exactly. I believe it's called Rise. But I'm not going to go through the whole thing. I'll just kind of click through it quickly so you guys can see what we've done. Explaining a little bit about what fiber is, based on why, some interaction here. through this website. Again, if you feel like it, please go to our website at growhancock.com and take a look, explaining kind of what we wanted, what we were, the information here. They talk about Call of Duty Warzone. The fellow that put it together has kids, and they were playing they're trying to download their internet games, and he was offering information about how quickly you could do that based on what type of speeds you have, just to put that into sort of layman's terms. There's a little quiz. You can drag these to match up with what you've got, what you believe is the correct answer, submit that, and then continue on. So this was our discussion with the community, trying to help them understand, this was a living document for the most part. We wanted them to understand why we wanted their help. This was one of the maps that was provided by the U of I Extension Office. The team there was amazing. Shabika rocked those maps. Those were some of the best, most useful things we got out of this, just to be able to really show people. I personally am I'm a visual learner, so this was really helpful. We had the map with the fast internet. As you can see, there's a lot. We've got community, an odd bit of the country was doing pretty well, and then a whole lot of people that were without. So you could make your own map. You can kind of explore those. Let's see, this was the results of our survey. This will be really different for each of you, I'm sure. But we ended up explaining, a little bit about what we found and where we found it. These dots are interactive. Again, I encourage you to go through and take a look at that for yourself. We were able, again, with these maps to figure out where we were. And that was one of my main points for us was, again, these vertical assets are huge. I'm not sure where you guys are at in the program and if you've gotten to that yet, but being able to figure out where Wi-Fi extension could be added, those vertical assets are huge for that. Being up against the Mississippi, we have some topography issues. Fiber can't be dug all the way up in all the places that we need, so that they call it the last mile, can be really useful. All of our different internet service providers. And then we kind of continue on how this works for farmers. Again, we are an agricultural community, so we wanted to really focus on that. The Illinois Farm Bureau and our local Hancock County Farm Bureau were huge in assisting us with this. They were the ones who brought us to the broadband breakthrough in the first place. So we give a lot of statistics about the agriculture, unserved and underserved are you can see corn and beans being grown. Again, I'm not sure exactly, I don't know if this is all useful to you guys. This was a huge for us. One of our internet service providers we were in the process of this, MTC, McDonough Telephone Cooperative, received an $18 million grant. And so they're actually going to be in the future pushing this out towards some of these communities. We kind of talked about that and why we need to have further broadband extension. The thing that Bill was mentioning before, we were talking about, your vision. Our vision was, I'm sorry, I've lost it all of a sudden. I had a moment there. It was our vision was internet service for all of fast, reliable internet service for all of Hancock County. One of the things that we really talked about was that we wanted to make sure that everyone has access to the things that Skylar was talking about before. Home health care. We want to make sure that anybody who wants to work from home, like I am, can do so. We want to make sure that anybody who, needs any kind of schooling, whatever you might need it for. I mean, if your kid if you've ever had a kid trying to download something and it wasn't going fast enough, how important fast internet is, but even more so, as Skylar mentioned, people who maybe aren't connected and could be, this can really benefit people's lives and their their livelihoods, businesses that aren't able to bring the internet fast enough to pay, get customers to pay for things. We've had people talk about it. And again, the agriculture, one of our farmers was talking about how they have better internet in their farms in Brazil than they do here. Solar power for those farms can be a real a boon for them, but a lot of the Illinois programs for solar require a Wi-Fi signal so that they can send data back to the providers for the solar. And all of those little things have made such a big difference just in the amount of knowledge that I've got, helping understand why it is so important to have fast, reliable internet service for the entire county, not just for the big communities. So again, as Skylar mentioned, I'm happy to answer any questions. I hope something I've mentioned has been useful.
Good. Thanks, Sam. And that it's exciting with that your broadband project and imminent construction of
Oh yeah,
a lot of new fiber, $18 million worth of fiber in your county. So that's exciting. I know the battle continues.
Yeah. I will mention that it was 18 million total grants, 16 of that goes into Hancock County. So, I mean, I'm not scoffing at 16 million. I just want to be clear. So
Good. Thank you.
Thanks.
Good, thanks. Let's go to Tracy Strassner from Bedford County. Welcome, Tracy.
Hey, how are you guys? Good morning. Hey,
Good morning.
I have a little bit of a website envy after seeing Sam's presentation, but if you don't mind, I'll share the screen and I'll show kind of the one pager that we did that was helpful for how we kind of shared and socialized our plan and walked through that. Similar to Sam, we actually are a rural community, but we're booming. We're in the middle of Tennessee. Our last census put us at about 50,000, right below 50,000. So we're right on the cusp. We're an hour from Nashville and probably a half an hour from Rutherford County, which is one of the fastest growing counties in the area. And we happen to have a very active county commission group, an economic development group. And they're the ones that saw the grant and kind of organized us doing the application and then being part of the program. Can't say enough about, we were in the middle of this at this time last year, heads down, and our group went from 5 to 10 to 25 quickly. And I think, both Skylar and Sam said this, the rally cry that you guys create as your mission statement really does live on. And it creates such a community connection so that as you're building and working towards your plan, the relationships that you're building and the framework that the program offers is repeatable and people start leveraging and using it for other initiatives. We're now part of a Connected Communities grant that's starting to kick off. And immediately we knew the players, we knew who to engage, we knew the framework that we wanted to kind of use. And then because we actually put together this kind of one pager, and this is the front page of it, people are familiar now with how we want to kind of tell the message and build a message. So that's some of the power that comes from going through the program that we found. Similar to both groups, it was going through the survey and creating the map and really getting the data that was important in building the message. So as you're doing that survey, getting the questions, making sure that you get active participation from all groups and can measure that, and then using those sound bites as you're telling your story and building that rally cry again and support for the community. It's great. And because you're able to leverage the comments and the stories, either on Facebook, we did it also on our letters. We were able to hand that information back to folks and they were able to give examples similar to one that was mentioned earlier. I have principals that live within a mile from their school. My schools are connected on broadband, but my principals and my students are not. And when you think of connected and everything that we're doing and workforce development and to raise our level of schooling in the education space, if you can't be connected today, that is actually a real detractor for how you can be successful. And so when we were doing our mission, we were really focused on being one of the first Tennessee counties, rural counties, that has broadband for all our community, because we see it as such a way of enriching the lives of our citizens. The other thing I would say going through the program, it is that cross-community function. And when we said that we grew and grew, as each group kind of told their story and their needs, you could see this just natural connection happen. And even though we haven't, I think we ended in August, we've met a couple of times, you now see those groups leaning in and they're managing change and they have confidence in change, which has been a great output of kind of just getting everyone together and going through this. I will say we turned it around and have this as a community sponsored group. It's not under economic development. It's not under our city or county government. And I think that brings a little bit more of a sense of community around it. And so we have continued, like I said, we've continued to meet. You see our story, our mission, our plan. And one of the other things that we learned when we were going through the survey process is why we had the need for it. So we knew we needed it for government services, but it really kind of highlighted to us how many of our residents are dependent on government services. As you mentioned, you have your elderly population. We have a high Spanish population or ethnic population that's in the area, and they are underserved or unserved. And so it allowed us to connect with each of those groups about what they need. The one that was really surprising to us was, if you see the one on the bottom, banking and financial management. And that is so many of the banks in the area, so our farmers, as well as our students who are trying to figure out financial literacy. Everyone has a phone these days and everyone's using a bank app. They're not driving to the banks anymore. And they saw that as a really limiting factor. If they couldn't have that application, they couldn't make those decisions, they couldn't partner with their banks kind of immediately. Trying to think, going through my notes here. The framework's great. I would pay attention to the framework again, make sure you guys are making good notes. But we came out on the other side with a very powerful story. One of the members from, like I said, we had a strong county commissioners, they actually found the prior 10-year plan. So when you look at what we did as our graph on the top, we were able to go back and look at what we looked like for broadband 10 years ago, and we've declined. So while the pace of internet and the pace of access and apps continuing to increase, our ability to provide our residents with that access is totally decreased. And that was a powerful message for everyone to hear. Cross-generational was important as well. So we were able to include, because of the Board of Education, and we had a lot of projects that were happening in that workforce development space. And then with our farmers and with our generation, we have a lot of veterans in the area. We were able to bridge with a couple of projects to have the youth assisting those in need of the older generations of the generational gap. And we have them working together now in some of our rural communities, doing things like how to use your phone, how to connect to a printer, as well as telehealth for our veterans. So it's been a great program, but we're looking forward to kind of the next steps in the grant process so we can continue to evolve it and develop it.
Tracy, thank you.
Yeah, any questions for me, you can ask later too. Thank you.
Okay, good, thanks. We're going to go next to Gary Camerano from Whiteside County. Welcome, Gary.
Hi, Bill. How are you?
I'm great.
Well, thanks for inviting me. We started our process, I think, a while back. I think my first conversation with the county board finance committee was, getting our ARPA funds ready to be used as matching funds for any grant application and make a significant match, and it seems to have helped. We're about to get our grant awards with our partner. We selected Joe Carroll Energy, a local co-op. That also helped using a co-op, but making sure that people saw that we had a significant contribution going into it. So it looks like we're going to be ready to break ground this as soon as the documents are signed. They're going back and forth now with the Joe Carroll Energy and the state, making sure that they've countersigned it, goes to legal review, then gets put on the director's desk, and checks are finally coming out. So that should happen very quickly, and it looks like we'll have enough to do pretty much the entire rural, unserved portion of Whiteside County. We're a little bit different from some of the other counties that have been, in the process. We have a micropolitan type environment here. We have some smaller cities. Again, it's all relative. Compared to Chicago or Naperville, they're smaller, but they count as micropolitan, and they're centers of the commerce and activity here. Sterling, Rock Falls. We have a manufacturing base. Agricultural and tourism, I think, are some of the drivers, and all those can benefit from robust broadband connectivity. I was kind of using the example that as the country grew, it was all about connectivity, whether you were on a river or a canal, the Erie Canal, opening up the West. And again, that's all relative. You don't think of New York as being leading into the West. Because right now the West is 3,000 miles west of that, but the Erie Canal was big. Telegraph, railroad, the interstate. This is just the next step in what makes us all connected, and that's the robust fiber. I've been trying to get some information on the exact outcomes. For example, I've been scouring a lot of white papers and papers issued coming out of universities, and sometimes it gets kind of boring going through all the information, but I'm uncovering little gems like for row crop growers, the use of precision ag with the broadband fiber can increase a yield on that acre of $88 per acre, and it can reduce waste in the way of not applying chemicals or energy and water and so on. $13 per acre. So, by using precision ag, we're looking at about $100 increase in the productivity of every acre. And it just goes on, health, telehealth. If we can reduce absenteeism in our workforce, by not having to take a full day off to travel a couple hours away to get a medical appointment, but, can be done in the community, for a half hour by, telehealth type connectivity. So I'm trying to get those exact figures because, you tell everyone it'll be a boon to our economy. Well, how much? Because again, we all hear that, oh, this is going to be fantastic. Well, how fantastic? So I'm digging up those facts, but the key to I think our success so far has been doing our due diligence on selecting our partner, the ISP. Looking at the application, they give extra points for using a co-op or a NFP, that type of thing. Now, not all communities have a co-op in their area. We were fortunate we did. I think the MCT telephone co-op for that was at Hancock. I think that's going to be a big plus on your application. If you can get your community to, not be with the alligator arms and, but reach deep into the pocket and do that match, that's a big thing. They want the review committee, the applications to see the communities behind this, not only the voice that we need this, but we're willing to pony up from our side to help this happen. And also looking at some of the current opinions out there from some of the experts in the field, there's selecting the partner is going to be big. There's been a lot of private equity coming in, buying up ISPs, and then what happens, after they receive those grants and build out, are they just going to flip it and leave you high and dry with, maybe a substandard provider? So I think you got to look and do the due diligence, find out, who the major shareholders are. Again, we're lucky enough to have a co-op. They've been in the area since 1939. They led the way with the electrification of the area. So in essence, we know where these people live, which is a good thing. If you're dealing with, someone who's just in it to, see what they can do to get, some of that money that the government's putting out there, in the way of private equity, not so much. And then some of the larger corporate providers, whether it's a Comcast or Verizon, make sure that they're committed to helping your community. They're going to be around for the long term. Are they going to value your community as much as they are a higher density, an area with higher density? You don't want to be the last one on the list to get improvements or maintenance or whatever. So a lot of it is due diligence. You got to ask those questions, I think, of, who are the major shareholders, what the commitment is to the community, and things like that. I had one ISP I was talking with, and I asked about, your private equity backers. He told me the story. Well, this is just like, this is capitalism. It's just like the regional banks and the super regionals buying up the community banks, 20 years ago. This happens. And I'm thinking, yeah. And how did that work out for us when all the community banks disappeared and were replaced by money center banks who did a poor job serving the community? So you look at what the motives are behind it, and I believe in capitalism and whatnot, but sometimes just because you can doesn't mean you should. But I think certain models makes more sense for rural areas than others, and I'm so glad we have a local co-op to help us with this. They're committed to the area. Their members are basically the board of directors, and it's local control, which I think is very, very key in something like this. And I think the outcome, and we're anticipating a pretty healthy grant funding based on the application we put in, and so I look at that as very successful. As far as getting the community involved, we had a fairly large cohort involved in the 14-week boot camp. And people were very involved. We reached out with electronic surveys, paper surveys, getting people involved. We had a Spanish version of our surveys as well. We do have a Hispanic community, maybe not as large as some areas, but we do have a Spanish-speaking population. So we try to reach out. And during those 14 weeks, it's amazing how much we didn't know going into it until we saw what we didn't know and quickly brought up to speed. Still don't know a whole lot. I'm sure there's a lot that I still don't know, but the 14 weeks really helped. The expertise that was brought in weekly to cover different issues, the University of Illinois Extension, they were great as an assistance in doing this right. And, we're happy we did it. And I'm happy that, we were able to get our local match to make a significant impact on the outcome, to get money in the game. You want it, but, make sure that you want to show them that you've got, skin in the game as well. Make sure that your provider that you select isn't just in it for taking the grant funds and then flipping it later on. So I'm again super happy that we had that local co-op. They brought in a group that helped write the grant and the engineering, so that our application was probably one of the better applications the state received as far as feedback. I guess not the official feedback, but they were very happy with the application that we put in. So all in all, I think the process worked. The 14-week boot camp, picking your partner, your ISP, and then also making sure that the finances show that your community is got skin in the game as well. That local match is important as well. And again, as I try to find some data on the exact outcomes, for infrastructure, there's reported that 4-for-1 return over 20 years, and the dollars spent locally, through tax revenues, productivity, property values moving higher, things like that. Anecdotally, we're starting to see the idea that if we are connected and we are taking the mantra of you can live in a great area, quality of life wise, and work anywhere because you're connected and you can do remote work. And anecdotally, we're starting to see that type of thing happen. A small area, Lake Carroll, which is kind of a subdivision, as soon as it was announced that the broadband is coming, the fiber broadband, 14 lots sold within a week in that one little subdivision. So people are interested in moving, getting out of let's say the large metro areas and moving to a more quality of life type situation.
Good, Gary. Thank you. That's really interesting about those lots. And I think there is no doubt that people are seeking, a certain percentage of folks are seeking a more rural lifestyle and to be out either in a small community or out on an acreage. And the one thing I'd follow up on is that one thing communities can do once they've solved their broadband infrastructure issue is to really focus on tech literacy, and not just that, for the grandmas and grandpas out there, but for workforce and for entrepreneurs. And it's not necessarily a natural leap for folks. Rural areas also lack a lot of technology support industry, the networking people, the web designers, some of that. And or they might be in your community, but they work for clients in the big cities using technology. And so to connect your community members to those experts is really critical.
Yeah, and we've been talking about, what's next? Okay, now that we have the tool and the connectivity, how do we best use it? And we're looking at starting programs where, for example, in the telehealth, getting some of the tech savvy students at some of our local institutions to be available to sit down with someone who might be trying telehealth the first time and doesn't want to screw it up. So there might be a dedicated office space in some of the institutions where they can go sit down, have someone, show them directly how do you connect, what connect and what information you might want to bring beforehand, get them used to it. Looking at same idea with the precision ag. You can tell someone, yeah, you got the ability to do precision ag, but what's that mean for me? How do I use it? How do I set it up on my equipment and so on? So we're going to try to get that. I guess if there was a last mile in fiber delivery, this is going to be the last training or tech details on getting people comfortable with using it. I know I've been
sure.
in some of my relatives' houses where we've cut the cable cord on our entertainment center. Now we've got streaming services and whatnot, and it's hello Alexa, can you help me find something? And they're lost on trying to get to Netflix or whatever. It's great you have that ability, but how do you use it? And my 7-year-old grandson can do it. Some of my compatriots and the people in my age group, they look around going, I don't know how to find a Wheel of Fortune.
Great. Gary, thank you so much.
Thank you, Bill.
There's a question in the chat, and not necessarily for anyone, our guests, but and maybe one of our Office of Broadband folks can find that. Looking at data on how many counties have received grants and how much they've received. And I know that the Office of Broadband has a list of grantees on their website, projects that they funded through the various rounds. Maybe we could provide links there. So good. I want to thank our guests for their presentations, and clearly they're big advocates of community broadband planning and the power of community to really influence the kind of infrastructure that gets deployed in their county. And of course, I chose them because I know that they had that point of view, but they've also had, I would say at this point, varying levels of success, and know that sometimes that money comes in big chunks, and sometimes it comes in on sections of your counties, and you just have to keep your eyes on and efforts going on that. So thanks again, folks, for that. I appreciate Sam and Skylar and Tracy and Gary's time today. I really thank you.
Thanks for the invitation, Bill. Happy to help.
Thanks, Bill.
Thanks, Bill.
Take care, everyone.
Thank you.
Good, thanks. We're gonna, Reed, if you want to put my slides back up, we're gonna do an abrupt shift for a minute to talk a little bit about broadband provider interviews. And I think that the really interesting in about the vision and but also then what Gary was saying is that about the importance of selecting those right broadband providers. And so that's really a critical piece. And part of that process we're going to talk about today, just really briefly, but it's going to, this is going to take place for you over the next several weeks. Probably the more time-sensitive thing for folks to worry about is the community surveys, but depending on the size of your team and the appetite for this, you know, if you can have one group working on the community survey and one group working on provider interviews, you can really make some good progress. And for some folks, you might find you have 5 or 6 or more internet service providers already in your county. You certainly want to talk to them. But then there may be also providers in the adjacent counties that you want to talk to, because you see them as community-centric, all the things Gary was talking about in terms of selecting ISP provider partner. So it's not just the providers in your community you want to talk to, it's the ones that are outside your community that are doing a great job. So when we talk about interviews, that sounds very formal. It sounds like, okay, here's our set series of questions and we're going to score them and pick a partner through this interview process. But I would encourage you to think much more about this as a decision-making funnel. So when you first start, it's general conversations with the providers, finding out what they, kind of what their philosophy is, who owns them, what services they provide now and where, what are their expansion plans, how interested are they in pursuing state or federal funding, all those kind of things, just as they get to know you. And one of our past speakers, Kevin Clone, who will probably speak towards the end of the program to you guys, is a broadband consulting engineering firm, talks about the importance of a cup of coffee and a ham sandwich in terms of these discussions. And so that would be kind of a very informal approach to starting to build a relationship with these broadband providers. So as we go through these slides, certainly the purpose is to develop that relationship. Is this a company that you want to work with? Can we get to know either the owners or the general managers or government relations people? Depending on the size of the company, it may, you know, that level of relationship and the level at which your discussions take place might be quite different. If it's Comcast, you're more likely to get a state government relations person or an area manager. If it's a local electric co-op, you're likely to get the general manager or at least the head of the broadband group and be talking to real decision makers. Try and gather that high level information. And we've got kind of a survey questionnaire that I see it more as a discussion guide, and we'll share that with you here before we close our work session here today, about using that as a way to guide your conversation with the providers. Learn about their existing plans, about what they see as the barriers, how desirable is your marketplace for them, what do they see as the financial barriers to really making sustainable broadband investment in your community. And then just simply agree on the next steps and understand it's going to take a while, you know, maybe 3 months or more to decide whether this is a project that's going to be good for both sides. Next. So you identify those existing providers, and through the survey process, we've already got a list of your broadband providers that claim they deliver service in your community. Then you'd want to look around at the map, and one of the things that is a great use of the state broadband map is to look and see where is there already fiber optics. Who are the folks that are providing that fiber optic service? And of course, the closer they are to you, the better that is. They may have more interest in your market. But also know that there's no, today with these middle mile networks, that a broadband provider can hop over larger areas of area and come to your community. They don't have to be directly adjacent to your community for them to edge out into your community. They could make a hop, get some fiber optics from a bigger, like a level 3 kind of communications, or on the Illinois Century network, and get from place to place without having it necessarily be contiguous. Again, existing providers, competitive providers, and start the process now. Learn what you can do to attract their interest. And as you try and gather information, you talk to them about the survey and what you're gathering. Let them know that this data might be available to them as a data source for them. And then just let them know that this is part of a partner selection funnel. Let them know that you're going to be working hard on this, and that a lot of times providers are content to let an area be unserved as long as they think no one else is going into that area. But the second somebody else thinks they're going to go in there, their competitive instincts are motivated. So let them know that you're working on this, and that there's going to be a window of opportunity. And if they want in on it, that now is the time. And then again, maintain contact. Let them know what's going on in your efforts, what you're learning, find out what changes they have. So next. Here's some kind of on this survey discussion guide. You can see the kind of questions, for your existing providers. What are you doing now, and how are you getting service to our community? How are you doing on meeting the state goal of the 100 down and 20 up, which is now, by the way, the FCC's broadband standard. So the 25/3 standard has kind of disappeared gladly, and now we've got this 100/20 standard. And what can you do to help them move forward? And then with the prospective providers and your existing ones, this more complete list of questions that we'll hand this out to you as well. But what can we do to help? What kind of funds do you have in the hopper to invest in our area? Or what kind of, if funding has gone to other providers, how does that impact your own funding choices? What do they think is a necessary subsidy? Thinking about if some communities want to do an open access network, or at least an open access middle mile network, what would be a company's interest in participating in some kind of public-private partnership like that? What do they offer now? How do they make decisions about financing? Is that are you talking to the person who's a decision maker, or does it have to go through multiple levels of from where you're located to Springfield to Philadelphia or Los Angeles, or wherever that company is headquartered, in terms of decision-making process, time frame for measuring investments? When we talk about different providers, if it's a publicly traded company with shareholders, they're looking usually at a 3-year, 4-year at the longest kind of time frame for getting return on investment. An electric co-op might have a decade or more that they're willing to understand that this is long-term infrastructure, and they're much more patient in their idea of return on investment. How active will your company be in our community? Will you be on chamber boards or economic development boards? You support local Little League programs, school partnerships, or will they be noticeably absent from those kind of things and confine their role to just really delivering this service? And so let them know that you're not only trying to attract them, but you want to select them as your broadband partner, that you feel that you have some role in determining who's going to get this money. The state broadband funds require community support. And so I think that community support can really be leveraged by your community with your plan to ensure that the broadband you get is the broadband you're going to like. Next. So we've got the interview guide. We've got the provider lists. And as you look at your list, and that's in your survey right now, if you need to contact folks for Frontier or Comcast or Charter or whoever those larger providers, let us know. Usually at the smaller companies, you can just call their general number and ask for the general manager, who's usually, their face is on the website and their name, and you can usually get a phone call conversation going with them, and either have them go to see, you can either go see them and visit at their company, or you can set up a time where you can, over a several hour period, ask different providers to come in over several hours and meet with each one for 30, 45 minutes or so on before moving on to the next one. And there's some benefit to that when they know that you are, if they see, if the incumbent provider sees the electric co-op folks out in the waiting room waiting for their chance, that shows a little bit of seriousness and shows that there is some competition happening here to be your broadband provider of choice. Next.
I think that's the end, maybe.
Okay, good. So you can stop sharing then, Reed.
Yep.
And then Reed, will you put those tools in the chat?
Yes, I am getting the links together right now.
Okay, good. Nancy, do you want to provide a quick update of where we are on survey launch?
Thank you. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Hi, everyone. Wanted to let you know I have 5 out of 6 county information for surveys at this time. Really, I'm ready for you all to launch and can give you those short URLs that you can use to launch. The only thing that I wanted to let you know, and I wanted to bring up some information here to help me explain. So we had a meeting yesterday with Speed Challenge Speed Test Data team from Chicago, and I didn't want to launch the surveys before this meeting because they are going to provide a line of code for me to be able to put the speed test in our survey so that folks don't have to go out of the survey, take a speed test, and then copy paste their results back into the survey and toggle between 2 windows or 2 tabs. And so really, I thought that would be great to implement that as a better tool in our survey for speed test data collection before launching this next set of counties. However, if I don't get that information in a timely fashion, I will proceed and just give you your URLs so that you may launch as soon as possible. And we will wait until the next round of counties, the next cohort of counties to implement that tool And so then your surveys will be like everyone else's have been, where folks click on the link for the speed test, it opens a new window, they take it, they take the results and they enter it into their survey. And we've seen a pretty good amount of responses, a pretty good rate of response for counties in the past as well. So I think either way, it will work out just fine. But that is sort of what the holdup is. And so 5 out of 6 counties, thank you so much for all of the information. Those surveys are ready. I believe I've contacted the one county that still is a little bit rogue right now, and I'll be visiting your breakout room first to kind of ask, if I can have the rest of the information. And so I'd like for you all to be able to launch definitely by Monday, could be sooner. If you're really antsy about launching immediately, let's get you launched. But if you can hold off until maybe like Friday or Monday or something, then we could put that functionality into your survey.
Nancy?
Want to make sure we have time for questions. I know there's other questions about surveys.
Yeah, and I just want to encourage people to be patient because I think that's a great advancement that will increase survey response completion, and so that, to me, that's a nice improvement that is forthcoming. So
I think it should help.
Yeah.
I think we get great responses. I think we get enough responses the way it works, but I think it would increase the amount of responses for speed test. Because it's when you get to that point of the survey, it's like you see that speed test just embedded right into the survey. So we're excited about that, and hopefully that will work out. But what, as most of you all know, there's a human element to this. So if it hinges on, one person getting that code written and sent to me, then we just are sort of waiting for that. So I do know that there's probably 2 counties that are like, Nancy, we're so ready. Everything is like sitting there like fireworks. All we have to do is, push it. So we're ready and we want to launch. If you're very, very ready to launch, let's go. And I think that's fine. But if you want to hold out just a little bit longer, then we'll see if we can get that change made. And then, of course, in advance, apologies if we don't get the information and then we're all just launching late with the old way of doing it, which I think with the close date of May 17 at the latest for everybody, there's still a month and a half that they would have for distributing survey around. What other questions do participants have right now?
I see one about, it says, are we comparing speed tests and wireless providers? And there's really, of course, wireless providers, there's a couple different types. There's the fixed wireless providers that qualify as broadband service. It gets very definitional here, but fixed wireless compared to mobile wireless. And we actually test both in this program.
Yes, and just in case you're asking about, in the survey, they're asked what is their internet service provider, and then they also take a speed test. Is there a way that I can provide a breakdown of which providers in your county are providing great service in terms of speed? That's definitely possible for us to look at, in case you're wondering about that as well.
Good. Any other questions?
And of course, my email, just don't hesitate. And then I will say what I've said every time is I do consider launching a countywide survey a serious matter. And so when we do launch, I will be providing you even my cell phone number, because it's very important to get, if there's anything like some small thing, it's very important to just like get a text or, some way of just quickly making a change or something. In the past, it's been something very, it could be very minute, but maybe somebody has some text in the intro language they want to change, or maybe they realize they provided a number that is, you know, ringing off the hook now, and they want to change that number to a different number, whatever it is. So we'll work with you, and usually those launches are pretty smooth. If not, they're just slightly bumpy, and then they launch fine. So
Nancy, there's a question from Justin. Will the results include the past speed tests, the challenge? Any discussion from the University of Chicago folks if we can get access to those previous speed tests that took place outside the survey?
we did have a conversation about that on 2 occasions. And so there's been some talk about that information being batched into the state maps. And so the way that would go is I wouldn't report on your results. When I report your results, it's for the survey speed test results. However, you all learned about using the state and federal, the state and national broadband maps, that secondary data on those maps to also build your plans. And those speeds are included in those maps. They get batched into the state maps as well. So what you'll do when you're, I guess we'll be into May, late May or something, when Bill starts talking to you about getting your plan together and getting your, everything together. You're looking at your primary data from your survey, and you're looking at your secondary data from those broadband maps as well. And really both of those together are going to help you. You're going to want to include all that. So those are the 2 places, Justin, that you will pull your speed test results from, basically.
Good. Thanks, Nancy.
Mm-hmm.
Let's get into the breakout rooms. And I don't see any other questions in the chat. So, really, lot to do and never enough time, but think about your vision statement. And I think that's really an important topic for discussion today. So to focus on that, the ISP interviews is something that I would encourage you. Sometimes folks say, oh, well, Bob will take care of all these ISP interviews because he knows them or he's a technical guy or something. But I think I would encourage you to do that as more of a group process of, at least a handful, 3 to 4 people are involved in those interview processes, simply because people hear different things. People have different relationships. There's, one-on-one, I think sometimes can be problematic, depending on who that interviewer is or interviewer is. So I just think a group doing those interviews is really important. Doesn't have to be your whole group, but I think having 3, 4, 5 folks at least on a committee, and then finally anything you need to do on the survey planning and launching. So those really are the tasks for today. So a full plate.
All right, so I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording, and